SPORTS. We are going to be joined in just a moment by Rena Buckley, Cork legend, featured in each of the 10 All-Irelands that the Cork footballers won from 2004 to 15, and the late Eamonn Ryan, of course, manager for each one of those wins. We're going to be remembering him next. But before that, we wanted to bring you back to 2015. It was a chat on off the ball. It was a Saturday panel. It was it was Anthony Moyles, it was Derek McGrath, and the great late Eamonn Ryan, and it'll give you an insight, I think, into why you had such an incredible impact on sport in this country.
You got to know the game. You don't have to be able to play it well, but you've got to know it well so that you can teach it, explain it, and if a player is doing something, I don't want my language here, that's not the right way, that you're able to give him feedback that's positive and that it's relevant and that it's not bull, like, you know.
Yeah.
And I think you also need to have, and I wouldn't have got this for a long time in my life, I only developed it in the last maybe 24. You've got to have an empathy and a sympathy with the player. You've got to be able to understand what the player is trying to do and to actually realise that this is a difficult skill to perform, particularly in the modern game, which is played 3 times faster than the game I played. But crucially as well, the sympathy to realise that when the player makes a bags of it, that she's the last person that wanted to make a bags of it was that actual player. He didn't make a bags of it for the sake of it.
Yeah.
And if you haven't this, I think you're in serious trouble, because what you're trying to create ultimately is an environment where the player will flourish. Now, if you have the empathy and the sympathy, you won't facilitate the flourishing of the player's skill. And like the skill, as a tangent to that is really the player's personality and the player's emotional stability and the player's outlook on the whole thing. Sorry, I went on a bit there.
That was perfect.
And we were delighted for him to go on a bit. Rena Buckley, good morning to you.
Good morning, how are you?
Good, thanks. And our sympathies are with you and our thoughts are with you. And I'm sure it's been a tough 24 hours. So thanks a million, first of all, for taking the call this morning. I know that the former players have been lining up to pay tribute, which is a mark of the man. The Eamonn Ryan you were listening to there, is that the Eamonn Ryan you're familiar with?
Absolutely, yeah. That's our Eamonn. Look, he was a very, very special individual, and just the way he spoke there, just with the empathy he had with players, the passion he had for the game, the time he had for everybody, that was Eamonn Ryan. He was just, he was one in a million.
Yeah. I mentioned earlier in the show that our dealings with him around that time really left a mark, even with me, in terms of booking him in, and how gentle and sweet and lovely he was, and throughout the whole thing, even afterwards, a lovely text that he sent. Was he always, Anthony Moyles was asking the question afterwards on Twitter about, was there always that niceness about him, or was there a bit of metal there as well when needed?
Oh, there was definitely a very tough exterior to him, and look, I suppose as a manager, he would have been tough at times. He would have had, in one sense, he would have had very little sympathy for you if you were, maybe hadn't looked after yourself very well, or you were under pressure, or, for maybe if you were at the back of the group, he wouldn't exactly have, you might have felt he was a bit unsympathetic. But I suppose that was the kind of the tough exterior that he had. He was always trying to build resilience in his players, always trying to make sure he got the most out of us at training and all that, but on the other side of Eamonn, there was a very thoughtful, there was a very kind person, and he was so generous with his time, and I suppose one thing about him was he was superb company. He was the guy you wanted to be around. We hung on every word. He was so interesting. His stories were phenomenal. And he brought that togetherness to the group, and in a very, very special way. So he did push us, he did give us that tough love at times, but he certainly had the personal side as well, the human side, and that was the Eamonn that we loved.
How did he help develop you personally as a player and as a person, I guess, as well? He's spoken so much in that clip there about the individual, not just the team. So what impact did he have on you personally? Yeah,
look, I suppose for me, I suppose I joined the Cork ladies football team as a quite a young player. I think I was maybe 15 or 16, and Eamonn came along when I was 17, and he was with me all the way up until the age of 28. So, I mean, that's a huge developmental period in your life. You know, I went from being a secondary school student to a college student to a person working, and I suppose I would have went on and probably opened my own business in that period as well. So it was a huge development period in my life, and I suppose Eamonn was a constant in that period, and he was a very, very positive influence. So, like, the one thing about Eamonn was that he was always true to his values. He was, you know, he was a guy, no matter where he was. I was saying, you know, if he was in, you know, in the backfield in the farm where we used to train, or if he was inside Norris and Uachtaráin, he was the same Eamonn, you know. You know, he always, you know, he displayed huge humility wherever he was. You know, it was very obvious in the clip you played there. He put a huge emphasis on hard work. You know, he always emphasized, no matter where you wanted to go in life, be it in work, be it in sport, be it in your relationships, you had to put the work in. And, you know, he lived and died by that, you know. He was a very, very loyal person, and he was the person who led that loyalty, and, you know, he created a very loyal group around him. And I suppose it was those kind of values that rubbed off on us, and I suppose guided us through the different phases of our lives. And he was that direction for us, and that positive influence. And, like, I suppose as a younger player, I always knew what Eamonn was saying was really good, but I suppose I didn't appreciate as much until I got a bit older. And I remember as I got older, the last couple of years with him, you know, I used to go home and write down what he said. You know, I valued it that much. You know, it was really exceptional stuff.
Do you still have the notes that you've written down?
I do. I have them in a notebook there. I do. I've bits and pieces written down, and, you know, they're very, very valuable.
He made you captain 2010, Rena, is that right?
So, yeah, so I was captain in 2010 and 2012, but I suppose captaincy came about because our club, Dunamore, had won the club county or the Cork County Championship. Yeah. So that was on the basis of that.
And so did that did that change the relationship then, or the dynamic, or were there deep and meaningfuls around that time?
There was, yeah. I suppose if you were captain of the team, there certainly would have been a few extra phone calls and a few extra chats, and yeah, certainly that would have probably deepened the relationship between us for sure, yeah.
I was interested, Mary White, I saw, had said that over the 150 odd games, whatever she had covered over the years, that she had never heard him, and you've mentioned it already, but just never heard him take a bit of praise on himself almost. That sort of humility seemed to be, because frequently in sport, and particularly at that level, there can be a false humility about things, that the veneer is wafer thin, but it feels to have been, and particularly when you look at the longevity of it, quite a genuine trait.
Oh, absolutely. I would very much say that. And, you know, and I think the humility that Eamonn possessed, I think that was crucial in the longevity of the team, you know. Like, there's absolutely no doubt that the group that were there were a talented bunch, and, you know, no matter who would have been in charge of us, I'm sure there would have been some success. But I think the humility that Eamonn possessed, and the ability to keep everybody's feet on the ground, and, you know, make sure that everybody in the group was valued, I think that was hugely significant in the prolonged success of the group. I think that was crucial.
That's the key thing, because I presume that's probably the question you were asked most during your playing career. You do get asked most, is what was with the longevity? How did you manage to keep going so long? Did you do 5 in a row and then 5 in a row? And that's probably the answer right there in a nutshell, the humility of the team that was exemplified best by the manager of the team.
Absolutely, and Eamonn led the way there, and I think we followed. And, you know, I suppose that's something that has been very important in the longevity of football. But, I mean, there's a much greater thing at play here, you know, the humility that you must possess in your life. And, you know, that type of an influence was so positive on all of us. And while it was fantastic for us in terms of being successful on the football pitch, much more important than that humility to have in life is very, very important.
Did he have a philosophy on how the game should be played?
I suppose he did. So I suppose when I reflect on Eamonn as a coach, he would have been a stickler in terms of the skills and getting the basics right. So we would have practiced the basic skills over and over, practicing with our left, practicing with our right, and going through every year, no matter if you were 15 or you were 33, going through how to kick the ball, how to hand pass the ball, and doing that repetitively and making sure you were getting the basic skills right. And I think Eamonn probably married, those fundamentals with having, an excellent attitude. And it was through the marrying of those two things, that he gained success within the team. He probably didn't focus too much on the tactical side of things. He obviously wanted us to play in a certain style, and training would have been set up to allow us to learn that style and develop that style. But he probably didn't harp on too much with the specifics of how exactly he wanted us to play. He made sure our basic skills were correct. He made sure our attitude was spot on, and that we had the confidence to play as well as we can. And then he left us at it, and thankfully things worked out very well most of the time.
Was there time to reminisce at all, Rena, over the last couple of years in what an unbelievable team that was and what an unbelievable manager he was? I guess, was there maybe one year you played on after Eamonn, after he left, or did he walk away the same year? I can't quite remember, but was there time to catch up and reflect on both of your careers with that Cork football team over the last little while?
Yeah, look, so I stayed on one extra year to Eamonn. So Eamonn left at the end of 2015, and I finished up footballing at the end of 2016. So I played under Aoife Fitzgerald for 1 year. So like I was saying earlier on, I suppose we were aware before Eamonn ever came to an end just how special it was, and we were nearly reminiscing before he left. And I know before he left, I was getting worried, when would he leave? So certainly, we were enjoying, particularly for me, I suppose, look, it might have been different for different players, when they're at different ages or different stages of their career. But certainly the last couple of years, I enjoyed every minute with him. Anytime we got the chance, we reminisced about him, and, his little peculiarities that we enjoyed so much. And, we were chatting about him yesterday, and I was saying that, I remember he went on a few All-Star trips with him, and, we were just making sure we'd mind him on those All-Star trips. Not that he'd be, he'd get on absolutely fine without us, but, we just wanted to make sure he was taken care of all the time, because, he was so good to us, he was so loyal to us, and I think we tried to reflect that as much as we could.
I'm intrigued, Rena, by you mentioned the book and the notes of the conversations. It was a tremendous foresight on your own part to go ahead and do that. Was there anything, looking back on it, which I'm sure you have done over the last 24 hours, is there anything that's jumped out at you or stuck with you or surprised you about the things he had said?
Yeah, I actually haven't looked back on it in the last 24 hours, to be honest. But I know, look, I've looked back on it plenty of times, so there's been nothing really that has jumped out at me too much. I suppose, look, we're just looking at I suppose I've been looking back at a few videos over the last couple of days, and one thing that jumped out at me was there was one video, and he talks about that he's not there to win, he was there he just enjoyed football and hurling, and it wasn't about winning. And I will say that brought a smile to my face, because like, I have to agree with him, he certainly just loved football, he loved hurling. He loved people, particularly young people. Like, I don't think, whenever I knew him, I don't think I ever described him as an old person. He was young at heart, and he brought enthusiasm. But like, by God, he loved winning. Yeah. And he left no stone unturned to make sure that we'd win. But at the end of the day, he could walk away, and it was for the love of the game. But I did enjoy when he said he wasn't in it for the winning, because by God, he did love winning as well.
It's all right when you're winning that number to say that. It must have been a wrench for him, Rena, when he left eventually, with all the success, and that no great sign of an end to it at that point either. Yeah,
look, it was when it was always, I suppose, look, you can't stay at things forever, and look, obviously when he left, I suppose it was a sense of gratefulness for the amount of time that he had spent with us. And I mean, I think he has contributed hugely to the transformation of Cork ladies football, but greater than that, I think, to ladies football across the country and as a sport. And his the legacy, I suppose, he's left in Gaelic games in general has been huge, but in terms of ladies football, he has contributed a huge amount to Cork teams, but to the game in general. And we're just so grateful for the amount of time and effort that he's given to us. And look, I suppose my condolences to Pat and to the Ryan family. And I suppose one thing is that he obviously, like, he was a husband, he was a father, but we're so grateful to them for for sharing him with us. The time that he gave to us, the dedication he gave to us. We're so grateful, and our thoughts and prayers are with Pat and with the Ryan family at the moment.
Yeah, well said, Rena. Thanks a million, as I said, under the circumstances, for taking the call this morning. You paid tribute, and in a just way, to the man that you soldiered alongside for so long. Thanks a million.
Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot, Rena Buckley, there in the passing of the great Eamonn Ryan, and our condolences as well to Eamonn and Eamonn's family. And we're sorry for his passing. He was a man who left a big impact on sport right around the country. Has been acknowledged by several sources over the last 24 hours.